Welcome to another Yoruba language masterclass, and the outcome of this class is to enable you to ask questions in the Yoruba language. This is going to be a D-Day class, it's the masterclass. So you want to have a book, you want to have your coffee by your side, you want to be seated and give it all your attention. And I'm going to be explaining everything in depth to you in this video. How to ask questions in the Yoruba language. And we'll start with how. And how in Yoruba is bawoni, bawoni. Báwo ni, mi rere, báwo ni, mi rere, báwo ni. So the usage is, whenever I now want to use it, it's báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. Báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. Báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. So you need to know, if you want to say how in Yoruba, is báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. That's just how Yoruba use our own version of báwo ni. So this ṣé is like did, or ṣé is do. But of course, Yoruba does not have past. We used some offsets to mark past in Yoruba language. And if it's present, we say ṣé, that is doing. So Yoruba does not mark past on their own word. So do, did is ṣé in Yoruba. So we can assume this is did. So báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. So let me just take you on a very steady pace. Báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. So báwo ni o ṣé. This is how did you. Báwo ni o ṣé. Báwo ni how. Pronoun o, you. Maybe you are asking me a question. O is you. If it is they, it is one. So báwo ni wọ́n ṣe. How did they. Báwo ni wọ́n ṣe. How did they. Báwo ni ó ṣe. How did he, or báwo ni ó ṣe. How did she, or báwo ni ó ṣe. How did it. Yoruba does not have gender. O is he, she, or it in Yoruba. So báwo ni ó ṣe. How did he. Báwo ni mo ṣe. How did I. Báwo ni wọ́n ṣe. How did they. So if you want to use this in example, of course I will still be talking about this as well, which is very, very important, because when you're asking a question about how, you are asking a question of how something happened, how something is going to happen, or how something usually happens. Those are three major forms of using how. How did something happen, how something is going to unfold, or how does something often unfold. So that's the basis for using how in a language. So let's start with when something had happened already, which is báwo ni plus pronoun plus ṣé. So now, if I want to say, how did you go, or let's say, how did you like it. How did you like it? Or how do you like it? 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 What do you think this is going to be? You can just think, how do you like it? Like maybe you're asking someone, how do you like it? So this is báwo ni. O ṣé. Like is fair. Fair. So this it's most of the time in the object position, he, she, or it is O in Yoruba language. O, but we use it when it's in the subject position. But when it is like he, him, her, or it, when it is him, her, or it, we don't represent it. We don't. So this is one of the videos that I always hammer on people to go and watch, the narrative voices in the Yoruba language, like pronoun. So báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́, we don't represent it. Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́. Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́. How do you like it? Okay. Ìbòwí, báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́. How do you like it? Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́. So how did you do it? Let's try that. How did you do it? 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 Báwo ni o ṣe? What do you think it's going to be? Báwo ni o ṣe ṣe? 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 So you can just say báwo ni o ṣe ṣe lánàá. Lánàá. Lánàá is yesterday. How did you do it yesterday? How did you do it yesterday? How did you do it yesterday? But if you just remove this, báwo ni o ṣe? How did you do it? Báwo ni o ṣe ṣe lánàá? You know, it not represented. Him, it not represented. So báwo ni o ṣe ṣe lánàá? How did you do it yesterday? Yesterday. So how did you do it yesterday? Báwo ni o ṣe ṣe lánàá? So this is for this, and then continue as well. You can say, how did you put it on? Put it on. How did you put it on? Put it on. How did you put it on? So how did you put it on? This can be a question of how did you put on the clothes? Like how did you put it on? Or an appliance. So how did you put it on? It's báwo ni o ṣe. If it's an English, this can give two meaning, except the context determines the meaning. How did you put it on? You'll be like, what? Is it my clothes you are talking about, or an appliance? So, but in Yoruba, putting on clothes, we don't use put it on. It is only when you are putting on an appliance that we use put it on. So Yoruba will say báwo ni o ṣe tán. Báwo ni o ṣe tán. Every appliance or everything that has on and off in Yoruba, that has on and off is what Yoruba call tán, is on. Pa is off, pa is kill, but pa is also off. So tán is to put on, maybe an appliance. Pa is to put off an appliance. So if it's generator has on and off. Tán generator, put on the generator. Tán fan, put on the fan. Tán iná, put on the light. Tán bulb, put on the bulb. Tán blender, put on the blender. Tán TV, put on the television. Tán iron, put on the iron. So anything that has on and off is what Yoruba will say tán, which is put on. So báwo ni o ṣe tán. So I'm now talking about appliance here. If it's how do you put it on? Báwo ni o ṣe tán. But if English want to say how did you put the blender on, Yoruba will just say báwo ni o ṣe tán blender. How did you put the blender on? Yoruba will just say báwo ni o ṣe tán blender. How did you put the blender on? Báwo ni o ṣe tán blender. So you can see the structure differences in a little way here. So how did you put it on? Báwo ni o ṣe tán. How did you, let's say, how did you want to go? 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 Want is fair. To go. Like, you don't need to put this in Yoruba language. These are just some little difference that has to do with languages. And as an English person, you may be looking at, okay, how did you put to here? You can say báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ sí lọ, because to is sí most of the time. In some instances, it is also láti. In some instances, it is also kí. In some instances, so báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ lọ. Most of the time, language is about, we have something we call deep structure in language. Deep structure, surface structure. Language is deep structure. It's like you just want to communicate an idea, but the surface structure is now how you communicate it. So there are different ways different languages have actually obtained in communicating their ideas. Yoruba also have some differences from that are different from the English language. So that's why Yoruba does not. Yoruba just communicates now. Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́? How did you want go? How did you want go? Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ lọ? But English we just say, how did you want to go? So one thing about language that I always tell people is just one thing about language that is very, very central to language is repetition. The more you listen. When I was even learning English language, like when I learned English language in school, it was not a language spoken at home. Yoruba was spoken at home in my community, in my environment. Even in school, most of the time, we speak Yoruba language and they often beat us for speaking Yoruba language. So, how we do English grammar sometimes, how I do it as a student then was when they give us some English language grammar to attend to. It's not as if I understand the grammar. I don't understand the grammar at all, but I will just read it. How do you, which one sounds familiar? So because I've always listened to my teacher communicate in English, always maybe watch a show in English, so things started sinking unconsciously that when I'm now addressing a grammatical test exercise, some things that are not supposed to be sound unfamiliar and things that are supposed to be the way it's supposed to be sound familiar. And that's why sometimes I do well with English grammar that has options than the one that doesn't have options. So if it has option, I'll just bring in the option to fill in the gap. Is when we are doing grammar test, maybe grammar tense exercise. So I'll just bring in one example, fill it in the gap, read it through. It doesn't sound well. Bring in another one, fill into. It doesn't sound well. Bring in another one. Oh, this sounds well. How do I know it sounds well? Because I've actually heard it from someone before, from somewhere before. So you don't really need too much basic knowledge of grammar when it comes to learning a language. You just need listen over and over and over again. You just need to try as much as possible to communicate in a language. Have someone to communicate with. To be sincere, if you have someone to communicate with, you don't need me. You don't need any grammatical lesson or the likes. Just listening and trying as well. Not being embarrassed. And that's why most of the time when I meet with my students, private students as well, sometimes I just interact with them. I put away notes, put away everything. It's just a case of interaction. So because it helps, repetition. That's what's going to help, because there are a lot of grammatical rules in language. Even to today, linguists are still drawing out patterns. So how many of you do you want to cram? It's just by repetition. So don't be discouraged, actually, just by repetition. And if you want a private tutor, you can really reach out to me. And I salute my private students already. They are the one that really make this to be going on. I salute them. You know yourself. So báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ lọ? How did you want to go? Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ lọ? How did you want to go? How did you want to go? How did you want to go? Báwo ni o ṣe fẹ́ lọ? How did you want to go? So that's for this. When you're actually using did, or when you're using did, like how did you want to go? Like in English, when you're using did or do. But of course, sometimes it's not everything that will be did or do. Like how some things just like did and do. It's not every time that it will be like that. There's sometimes it will be how will I get there? How will I buy it? How will I touch it? How will I take it? How will I? So we in Yoruba is ma. We is ma. So how will I get there? How will I get there? So you can think you will remove this she, which is do, but in Yoruba, you are not going to remove it. It comes with how in usage. How will I get there? So báwo ni plus pronoun plus she. Báwo ni mo ṣe, and then we ma get dé, dẹ̀, ibẹ̀. Báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? Dé ibẹ̀. Dé in Yoruba is arrive. And also when you're talking about arriving, like get here is not necessarily to collect something. Get can be, it's not collect. Get here is like, how will I get there? How will I arrive there? That's another way. When you're talking about arriving at a location or something arriving at a location, it is English that on the surface structure they turn it to get, but Yoruba it is dé. Arrive is dé. I have arrived. Mo ti dé. So how will I get there? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? How will I get there? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? How will I get there? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? How will I get there? Ibẹ̀ is there. Ibẹ̀ is there. Ibi is here. Ibi is here. So báwo ni mo ṣe máa dé ibẹ̀? How will I get there? Yeah, and we can also have how will I how will I how will I how will I put it on? How will I put it on? How will I put it on? Put it on in Yoruba is one word. Put it on in Yoruba is one word, and that is wọ̀. I put on my clothes. I put on my clothes. Mo wọ aṣọ mi. I put on my clothes. Mo wọ aṣọ mi. So put it on in Yoruba is like is one word. Put it on. But of course, it's because this it is not represented. If it is put them on, it's wọ̀ wọ́n. Them is represented. If they put them on, wọ̀ wọ́n. Put them on, wọ̀ wọ́n. But put it on, wọ̀. It is not represented as we've had in previous examples. So báwo ni mo ṣe máa how will I put it on? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa wọ̀? 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 How will I put it on? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa wọ̀? How will I put it on? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa wọ̀? But if it's like maybe like an appliance, it will be báwo ni mo ṣe máa tàn? 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 Tàn. Báwo ni mo ṣe máa tàn? How will I put it on? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa tàn? So that's for that. And if you also want to say báwo ni, how will I drive? How will I drive there? How will I drive there? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa let me just use drive. Drive is wa mọ́tò. Wa mọ́tò. But how will I drive there? Yorùbá say báwo ni mo ṣe máa wá? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa drive lọ síbẹ̀? Lọ síbẹ̀. Báwo ni mo ṣe máa drive lọ síbẹ̀? How will I drive there? Yoruba say, how will I drive to? How will I drive go there? That's how Yoruba, express this idea. How will I drive go there? So that's why I said language is all about repetition, listening to the right thing, and then you will know some differences in how Yoruba constructs theirs and how English constructs theirs. English can just say, English is more compact in this, but Yoruba is not as compact. How will I drive there? Báwo ni mo ṣe máa drive lọ síbẹ̀? How will I drive go there? That's just how Yoruba express this. So that's for how will, like when you are showing how will. Of course. And now another one is man, like usually. How do you usually how do you usually put it on? How do you usually wear a clothes? How do you usually, most of the time, like how do you cook? Like how do you cook? I'm not really asking a question of a one-time occurrence. I'm asking a question of habits. So like habitual. Whenever something is let me uh let me also say something here, which is about the Ashima. You can be, how are you going? How are you going? How are you going? Because I just want to, how also comes with how. How are. It is báwo ni a ṣe, báwo ni pronoun ṣe, a ṣe máa lọ. So if it is how are we going? How are you going? How am I dancing? How am I dancing? Báwo ni mo ṣe ń jó? How am I dancing? Báwo ni mo ṣe ń jó? So if it is actually, if it is how are, you will still use this ma. How are you going? Báwo ni. How are you going? How are you going? Báwo ni. Oh, you is not you is. It is correct if I say how are we going? How are we going? How are we going? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ? How are we going? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ? How are we going? Some people might want to say báwo ni a ṣe máa ń, because máa ń here is what Yoruba used to say something is present, something is currently going on. But if both of these two words come after each other, máa, it turns it to habit, something that is habitual. So you are not asking about how you are going in this one time again. Báwo ni a ṣe máa ń lọ? You are asking about how you used to go, how you usually go. It has turned it. So ma plus it's what Yoruba used to ask anything that's habitual. That English can just say, how do you dance? How do you cook? How do you go to work? How do you sleep? All those how do you is like asking a question of, it's not a one-time thing. Like, okay, because you slept yesterday, if I say how do you sleep, I'm not asking how you slept yesterday. I'm asking that kind of habit, how you do it, how do you sleep. So that is I just want to bring that out, that if you are not asking about habit, you should not put mahun together. If you are not asking about habit, if it is how are we going, it is báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ, because it's still a question of will, like how are we going, like something like you are about to do. It is just English that changes on the subject structure. It can as well be how would we go. How would we go? It can also be achieved with how would we go, or how are we going. So báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. Let me try if I can use one more example. If it's something that has not happened before, you are just asking about something that, okay, the feasibility of something, it will still be ma. How are we going? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. How are we going? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. How will we go? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. Or how would we go? Báwo ni a ṣe máa lọ. So if you're asking about the feasibility of something, it will still be this ma. But if it's something that is really, really happening right now, that one can be how are you, báwo ni o ṣe ń, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? This will be báwo ni o pronoun ṣe ń ṣe. It is unrepresented. Báwo ni báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you doing it? Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. So if it's something that is ongoing, it's like báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. So that's for that. But if it's something that is, you may want to use which is something that Yoruba use to signify ongoing. You say báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. If you use máa ń, that will not be correct. That changes the sentence to if I write, let me write it. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. The only difference in these two sentences is this ma. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. The only difference is this ma, which is an addition. So if you say báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe, it turns this sentence entirely to how do you usually do it? How do you usually do it? Or how do you do it? How do you do it? So that is this mahun. This mahun is usually, or something habitual, something that is habitual that you usually do. That is what you achieve with mahun. So these two words in Yoruba only follow after each other when you are talking about something that is habitual, something that how do some people usually do something. So English can say how do you usually do it, or how do you do it. English can say how do you do it, how do you dance, how do you cook, how do you shout, how do you sleep. So things like that. If I say how do you sleep, I'm not necessarily asking how you slept yesterday or how you are going to sleep tonight. I'm just asking how you usually sleep. Like how do you sleep? Like is it on the mattress? Is it with your eyes open or with your eyes closed? So mahun is a question of something that is an habitual question, like usually. So let's just we'll see go to that. So if you ask how are you doing it, it's báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you cooking it? How are you cooking it? Or how are you cooking? How are you cooking it? Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. Ṣe is meant from ṣe. The ṣe before is has a diacritic. I forgot to put it. How are you doing it? Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe ń. This one too has. This ṣe also has a diacritic as money. I want to put it. Ṣe also has a diacritic. Ṣe. Yeah, it's a diacritic. So báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you doing it? But how are you cooking it? Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. No, this one does not have a diacritic. Ṣe, because there are s and sh in Yoruba language. S, sh, s, sh has a diacritic. S does not have a diacritic. S and sh. So báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you cooking it? How are you cooking it? Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you cooking it? So if you want to say how do you usually cook it? It will be báwo ni o ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. Ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. Báwo ni o ṣe ń ṣe. How are you cooking it? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń ṣe. How do you usually cook it, or how do you cook it? So if you're asking about something that is going on currently, you will just put báwo ni o ṣe plus whatever it is. Like for example, maybe how are you watching it? Maybe someone is watching football. How are you watching it? How are you watching football? Báwo ni o ṣe ń wo. Báwo ni o ṣe ń wo. If it is watching it, báwo ni o ṣe ń wo. But if I want to put football, báwo ni o ṣe ń wo football. Football in Yoruba is bọ́ọ̀lù aláfẹsẹ̀gbá. It's more of a description. Bọ́ọ̀lù aláfẹsẹ̀gbá or just bọ́ọ̀lù. So, but if I want to tell me, how do you usually watch football? How do you watch football? It will be báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football. So you can see the difference here. Like if it is like something that's going on, you say báwo ni o ṣe ń wo football. But of course, let me also extend it a little bit to contain what we have here already. Like how will you watch football? This will be báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football. So you can see the difference. Báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football? How will you watch football? How will you watch football? Báwo ni o ṣe ń wo football? How are you watching football? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football? How do you usually watch football? And if we want to make more sentences with this, we can say, báwo ni o ṣe máa lọ school? Báwo ni o ṣe máa lọ school? How will you go to school? Báwo ni o ṣe ń lọ school? Báwo ni o ṣe ń lọ school? How are you going to school? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń lọ school? How do you usually go to school? Or how do you go to school? How do you go to school? So you can see the difference here. This one is like, báwo ni o ṣe ń wọ̀? How are you? This one is, how will you? Báwo ni o ṣe máa? How will you? This one is, báwo ni o ṣe máa? Like asking about something that is habitual. But of course, báwo ni o ṣe wo football? We can also have báwo ni o ṣe wo football, which is, how did you watch football? So this is just the báwo ni o ṣe wo football. Báwo ni o ṣe wo football. So this is just the 4 things I've actually been talking about. Báwo ni o ṣe wo football. How did you watch football? Báwo ni o ṣe dáná. How did you cook? I'm using another example now. Báwo ni o ṣe dáná. How did you cook? Báwo ni o ṣe máa dáná. How will you cook? Báwo ni o ṣe máa dáná. How will you cook? Báwo ni o ṣe dáná. How did you cook? Báwo ni o ṣe máa dáná. How will you cook? Báwo ni o ṣe ń dáná. Báwo ni o ṣe ń dáná. How are you cooking? How are you cooking? It may not really make sense that much. I don't know. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń dáná. How do you cook? Or how did you usually cook? How do you cook? So you can see the differences. And if I go to another example, báwo ni o ṣe rí. How did you see it? Báwo ni o ṣe rí. How did you see it? Or báwo ni o ṣe rí ọmọ mi. Báwo ni o ṣe rí ọmọ mi. How did you see my child? Báwo ni o ṣe rí ọmọ mi. How did you see my child? Báwo ni o ṣe ń rí ọmọ mi. Báwo ni o ṣe ń rí ọmọ mi. How are you seeing my child? Báwo ni o ṣe. No, this one is wait. Báwo ni o ṣe máa rí ọmọ mi. Báwo ni o ṣe máa rí ọmọ mi. How are you going to, báwo ni o ṣe máa rí ọmọ mi is, how will you see my child? Báwo ni o ṣe máa rí ọmọ mi. How will you see my child? And this can also be, how are you going to see my child? How are you going to see my child? Because this is something that is impending, something that is bound to happen. So are you going to, in Yoruba is ma. Are you going to come? Ṣé o máa wá. O máa wá. You are going to come. So báwo ni o ṣe máa rí ọmọ mi. How will you see my child? Or how are you going to see my child? So báwo ni o ṣe ń rí ọmọ mi. Báwo ni o ṣe ń rí ọmọ mi. How are you seeing my child? How are you seeing my child? Báwo ni o ṣe ń rí ọmọ mi. But of course, some of them might not really make sense that much. But of course, just to explain this. Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń rí ọmọ mi. How do you usually see my child? How do you see my child? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń rí ọmọ mi. So you can see, báwo ni o ṣe wo football. How did you watch football? Báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football. Báwo ni, I feel some of you are telling me slow down, so I'm slowing down now. So báwo ni o ṣe wo football. How did you watch football? Báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football. How will you watch football. Wo is watch, actually, like watch. When you're giving attention to something, Yoruba, English most of the time will say see a movie, but Yoruba is wo. So báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football. How will you watch the football. You might be wondering, where is the D? It's not really there. Yoruba only use the THE when we are referencing something like, oh, the football, that would be football, yeah. But if it's not like referencing the thing, we just remove it. Like, I'm going to the house, it's mo lọ sí ilé. I am going to the house, mo lọ sí ilé. But you say I'm going to the house, mò ń lọ sí ilé yẹn, that is that house. If Yoruba use th with yẹn, that means something that we both have shared understanding about, but except with don't represent it. So báwo ni o ṣe máa wo football? How will you watch football, or how will you watch the football? Báwo ni o ṣe ń wo football? How are you watching the football? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football? Báwo ni o ṣe ń wo football? How are you watching football? Báwo ni o ṣe máa ń wo football? How do you watch football? Habitual or usually. How do you usually watch football? So if I want to use another example, like báwo ni a ṣe fọ abọ́? Báwo ni a ṣe dé airport? Let me down. Báwo ni a ṣe dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe dé? Dé is arrive. De, which is not de, is da. Báwo ni a ṣe dé airport? Airport is pápá ọkọ̀ òfurufú, but you can just leave it like that. Báwo ni a ṣe dé airport? How did we arrive at the airport? Báwo ni a ṣe dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? How are we going to arrive at the airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? How are we going to arrive at the airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? How are we going to arrive at the airport? I did a video, if you've been following the masterclass, when I talked about ni. Some of you may be thinking, why did I not put ni? Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé ní airport? Ni here. Ni is something that you use with location, but when you're actually using it when you're using location, when you're referencing location in Yoruba, you always use ni, like ni airport. But ni airport is like in the airport or at the airport. English can just put I am at the supermarket. English use at the supermarket, but that at or in English is ni in Yoruba. So if in or at, if you are not referencing a location, not referencing that location, don't put it, because if you put, just use the analogy that I'm giving you now. Báwo ni a ṣe máa dé? If you put ni airport, how are we going to arrive at in airport? You are doing too much. You don't need ni in that instance. So báwo ni a ṣe máa dé airport? How are we going to get to the airport, or how are we going to arrive at the airport? So, and this one, báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? This one may not make that much sense. How are we getting to the airport? Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? Of course, it's correct among youths, like talking to them. Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo la ṣe ń dé airport? That's how you majorly get. Báwo la ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo la ṣe ń dé airport? Báwo ni. This one returns to L, and we remove this I. Báwo la ṣe ń dé airport? 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 So it's a correct statement actually. Báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? So a máa gbé Uber. We will take Uber. A máa gbé Uber. We will carry Uber. That's what it is. But that's how Yoruba talked about take. English we take a train, take a cab. English say gbé mọ́tò, take a cab, gbé mọ́tò, like carry a car. That's what Yoruba we used to say. We take a cab, gbé mọ́tò, take an Uber, gbé Uber, take a boat, gbé boat. That's just how Yoruba says. So báwo ni a ṣe ń dé airport? How are we getting to the airport? So báwo ni a ṣe máa ń dé airport? How do we usually get to the airport? Báwo ni a ṣe máa ń dé airport? But this may not make sense because you've been getting there. So like it's an habitual question. You've been getting there. How do we get there before? It may not really make sense. But of course, grammatically makes sense. Báwo ni a ṣe máa ń dé airport? So you can see this is just how to use how in the Yoruba language. And because this video is getting long, I wouldn't be able to progress into where, why, who, or other aspects. But if I see a lot of engagements, maybe if you like it, if you enjoyed it, you kind of like it, and also kind of comment on this video as well. I will also give an example, an exercise at the end of the video. Put it in the comment section. If I see a lot of interaction, then I'll know that okay, this video is worth it. You want to learn how to ask questions, and then I will do more video on it in the next masterclass. I will progress on how to ask questions in the next Yoruba language masterclass. I will not go to another topic. So because I want to cut it, so let me now let me give you something extra here, which is something that Yoruba also use, which is also common, like can. Because when you're using how, can is also very common when you're actually asking a question. Can is also very common when you're asking a question like how can you do that? How can you come? So can in Yoruba is le. I can go. Mo le lọ. I can go. Mo le lọ. So now people can say, how can you do that? 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 And there will be báwo ni plus pronoun or plus ṣe, and then we now have can, which is le. Ṣe is do. Ìyẹn báwo ni o ṣe lè ṣe yẹn? Báwo ni o ṣe lè ṣe ìyẹn? How can you do that? Báwo ni o ṣe lè ṣe ìyẹn? How can you do that? Báwo ni o ṣe lè ṣe ìyẹn? So that's just can. If it is a question of can, it will be báwo ni o ṣe and then le. How can you do that? So you can say, how can I see him today? How can I see him today? Or how can I see you today? No, the I has changed. It will be báwo ni mo ṣe, still can, le, see you today. That's what we now do. What do you think that's going to be? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ẹ lónìí? That will be báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ẹ lónìí? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ẹ lónìí? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ẹ lónìí? How can I call you today? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè pè ẹ́ lónìí? How can I call you today? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè pè ẹ́ lónìí? But this is C. So it's báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ẹ lónìí? If you say, how can I see my mother? Báwo ni, what do you think that is? How can I see my mother? Now the báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ìyá mi? How can I see my mother? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ìyá mi? Báwo ni mo ṣe lè rí ìyá mi? So that is for using can as well. So that's so let me just give you a little bit of an exercise so that you do that one. You do that, and let's see. And you can put it in the comment section Let's see. I will check it, and if you get it, thumbs up. I'll give you a thumbs up if you get it, and if you don't get it, I will try as much as possible to correct you. So, how did you take? Do you take paracetamol? How do you take paracetamol? This is a question of habitual. Like, how do you usually take paracetamol? How did I get here? 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 How will I see him today? How will I see him today? How will I see him today? And then how are you? How are you jumping the fence? 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 So, how do you take paracetamol? How did I get here? How will I see him today? How are you jumping the fence? And then lastly, how can I love you? Yeah, let's do that. How can I love you? Yeah, this is an important question for people who are married to ask their partner. How can I love you? How can I love you? Let me see. How can I love you? Very well. You should love your partner very well, unconditionally. So, how can I love you very well? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, how do you take paracetamol? How did I get here? How will I see him today? How are you jumping the fence? How are you jumping the fence? How can I love you very well? So, you answer this and put it in the comment section, and I will let you know if you get it right. So, this is Learn Yoruba Online, and if you want more of a private session, you can contact me on learnyorubaonline@gmail.com and we'll make it happen. So, hopefully see you in subsequent videos. This is another very good masterclass.